yourself and do your big dreams before you die, where I teach you to actually upgrade to a more delectable, more lick the plate, more delicious, bigger dream than your current identity and imagination can even contain. So, what I wanted to talk to you about today, I'm just kind of telling some self mastery stories from my own life and my own work, which are very, very intertwined. Um, I wanted to tell you today the story of why I changed my name. So, as some of you know, when I started Soul Tour, my name was Tara-Nicholle Nelson. It is now Tara-Nicholle Kirk. And I had, when I changed my name and started using my new name, I had a bunch of people email or call in to say, hey, did you get married? What happened? And my standard line kind of became, no, I just got extra divorced. I got extra divorced. So Nelson was my second husband's name. And sometime, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, so, maybe 6, 7 years after we'd gotten divorced, um, the name Nelson started to feel like it was someone else's name. Like if you've ever changed your hair and felt like you were looking in the mirror and you were wearing someone else's hair, that's how I kind of started to feel about the name. All right. So I had this very strong, clear, if you're into human design, I am a projector and I'm a splenic projector. So I get these very strong splenic like knowings. I just know a thing and I know it and there's no logic to it. It's just right. So I had that strong, very clear, very resounding inner guidance that Nelson was not my name for the duration. But what I didn't have was a similarly strong urge or pull toward what would be my new name. And so I remember actually having a couple conversations with clients or friends at the time, like, I'm going to change my name. Don't know to what. Like, I'm going to wait till I feel that similarly strong knowing that X is my new name. All right. So, cut to maybe a year or two after that, I'm teaching in the School of Self Mastery. Um, I'm teaching the book Circe by Madeline Miller, which is all about the Greek goddess Circe, who is the goddess of transformation. Well, let's see. What you think Circe's descriptor is depends on who you be. All right. So for generations, she was known popularly as the dread goddess. And I don't mean that she had dreadlocks. Okay. She was dread because she had the power to used the power to transform people into animals, men who tried to rape her into swine, for example. And so she was known as the Dread Goddess. But Madeline Miller rewrote the story of Circe. And as I was teaching it, I came to super identify with it. Literally, Circe's life story and journey was very, very parallel to my life story and journey. Circe was the daughter, one of many daughters of Helios, the sun. Her father was the sun, and her mother was kind of a minor character in the Greek pantheon. And Circe made some bad, without knowing what her powers were, used her powers in not great ways when she was a teenager, and was actually exiled, had to leave her home, leave her family, and go live on this island that was wild and uninhabited at the time. That felt like my family. I had grown up with a father who was very genius and also very abusive, like Circe's father. Um, Made some not so amazing decisions in my young adulthood, and then realized that there was no way I could expand into who I was becoming or even figure out who I was becoming while I was still having to receive the projections of what all of these people thought I was, who they thought I was. And again, just a quick human design reference. I'm a 3-5 profile. So that 5 line, if you have it in your chart, it's the heretic line in traditional human design. I think of it as like the revolutionary line. It's a line that receives a lot of other people's projections. You might even feel, if you have a 5 line in your chart, you might feel like people don't really know you, the real you. They just project upon you for good and for evil. And so as you get older, you may fix your magnet a little bit for people and fix your picker a little bit for people, and you'll fix your ability to understand and withstand other people's projections. But as a young person, I was like, I don't know, these people got a real strong point of view about who I be, and it's not who I think I be, so I'm out. All right. So I moved at the time to Oakland 25 years ago. I moved from my small town hometown in the center of California, very red, very conservative, to Oakland in the Bay Area, just a few hours away and just a few light years away, spiritually and personality wise. And I moved here to go to law school at UC Berkeley. I graduated about 21 years ago. So what was interesting also as a parallel is Cersei moved to this island that was totally uninhabited. But while she was there, she started to learn and experiment with her powers. She started to experiment with how she was designed and what she was called to do, what her unique gifts were. And she got really freaking good at using those gifts. And along the way, the place that she created, the place that she transformed this uninhabited, wild, undesirable island into, became the place that the whole pantheon wanted to be visiting. People would show up and drop in and show up and drop in, right? She came to raise a bunch of beautiful animals and a couple of beautiful children. She eventually renegotiated, demanded really of her father that she be unexiled. And ultimately, she used her power to make this wild, radical, maverick decision for a goddess. She actually transformed herself from immortal to mortal so that she could, taste the juice of mortal life that we all get to taste, which is the pain and the pleasure of knowing that this is fleeting. This is, this physical apparatus is fleeting, though the soul is immortal. So we better go on a living spree while we're here, right? So I super related to Cersei's story. Cersei in the original Greek was Kirke, Kirke. That is why my last name is now Kirk. Although I just say Kirk, I don't say Kirke. Process-wise, when the pandemic happened, I became very aware. I had lived through the Great Recession. I was in the real estate business during the Great Recession. I lost everything I had during the Great Recession in 2008. I came out of it way ahead. I was able to double my income, then double my income, then double my income again with what I learned and how I became who I became as a result of the spiritual and practical rituals and practices I created in that incubator of recession, global crisis where you lost everything. So when the pandemic happened, I was like, this feels really familiar. I've been here before. I know how to do this. I know for sure. Then this is relevant to every single human being watching this today, whether you feel like you were super personally affected by the pandemic or not, because we're already starting to see headlines about a coming recession. And I'm telling you guys, my big takeaway from 2008 was that there are those who will thrive in any global crisis. There are those who will thrive in any economic crisis. And not just those who take advantage. There are those who thrive by contributing and finding their right spot in the marketplace, because they tend to their inner well-being, because they stay grounded and clear-minded and on purpose enough to know, not necessarily to get their strategies and what they do and their decisions right the first go round, but enough to be able to course correct to whatever the world throws their way, right? So when the pandemic happened, I thought, all right, every crisis is a portal. Every crisis is an opening. Maybe there's some personal narrative here that's ready. Maybe what are the personal narratives that I've been living that are ready to be disrupted in this time? What is it? What transformations want to happen in me and in my life in this time that quarantine and not being able to be as socially busy or as traveling busy as normal? What's the opportunity here? What wonderful thing, what wonderful developments within me want to be had in this season? And so one thing I thought was, in my life as an entrepreneur and a toddler mom at the time, there's not a lot of time for like the legal stuff. So I thought anything legal, anything court-y, my estate planning. I did a bunch of estate planning work. I've actually finished getting guardianship for London and did London's whole adoption process in the pandemic. And so in the same vein, I was like, this is a good time to change my name. So the way the process is supposed to go, you file this name change paperwork with the court. You publish a notice in the newspaper. I know newspaper's still a thing. I think they mostly do it online, but it's kind of like gives everybody in town notice that this person is now becoming this person. Do you have any reason that shouldn't happen? Speak no or forever hold your peace type notice. And then you're supposed to go to this actual court hearing. And at the court hearing, you have a conversation with the judge. And then the judge is like, gavel, you are now Tara-Nicholle Kirk. Well, because I filed my paperwork and did my newspaper notice in the pandemic, somehow my process was radically accelerated. And that somehow, I think, is the law of divine timing, which just says that especially when you're in alignment with what your unique sacred contracts are to do, all this assistance and ease and acceleration or delays that benefit you begin to flow your way. So I filed the court paperwork. I published the newspaper notice. I was waiting to hear when my court appointment was. And instead what happened was on my phone one day, I saw a call coming in that said Alameda County Superior Court. And I answered the phone and it was like, hi, this is Judge so-and-so. I'm the judge in your name change case. Your order, you are officially now Tara-Nicholle Kirk. Bam, gavel. The court order is now done. I will email it to you. Whatever you do, do not come to court. We do not want people in the building. I was like, okay. So my name was officially changed in a very expedited way. So expedited that, in fact, I had to go to great lengths to actually integrate my name change into my own mind, into my own, it wasn't like getting married where you have this whole year of planning a ceremony and then the ceremony and then everybody's calling you whoever. Like it literally was like some guy called me and then my name changed. So it took me a long time to actually start using my new name. Hilariously, my friend Rebecca sent me flowers and was like, here, Tara-Nicholle Kirk. She's like, you gotta remember that this is who you are right now. And so, that's one principle to catch for somebody out here. When you have been through a season of intentional or unintentional, but rapid transformation that has expanded or changed who you be, you may want to get intentional about integrating that, right? In our world, we do that sometimes in our school by metabolizing the season before. What happened this year? Like at the end of the year, we'll literally do an intentional metabolizing exercise. What happened this year that I want to keep as part of me? Like you need to, no one's really out here teaching people how to have an inner life and create an inner infrastructure that is transformational. But this is how it's done. You literally reflect, pull in what you want to keep, intentionally shed what you want to shed, release what needs releasing. And often we do that in journaling or in writing or in conversations, but writing has a specific power to it. So I wanted to just share that in the self-mastery method, sometimes the biggest limiting factor that you have, the thing that's the point of the most resistance that's stopping you from creating all this alignment that wants to happen in your life, all this alignment between the insides of who you be and the outsides of your life that wants to happen, sometimes the biggest limiting factor on that alignment is your identity. It's your identity. And sometimes it is the most sweeping and easiest, I shouldn't say easiest, but it's the most comprehensive to pull big lever that can trigger alignment and the transformation you desire to have in your life is shifting your identity versus getting out here. What I see is a ton in my work is that people come in and they're like, I have this thing I'd like to do, or this way I'd like to be, this dream I'd like to create, but I'm stuck or have inner resistance or have these, we call them all kinds of things, inner log jams, procrastination, perfectionism. And they're out here getting time management systems and accountability coaches and reading every self-help book and trying to change their procrastination, and I'm like, usually there is some, if you track it back, if you get out of trying to do the work of alignment, the action of alignment, and you track it back to understanding who you really are and what goals and desires and dreams your inner wise inner being really has, right? Or if you even track it back beyond, deeper than that, under that, and you get to the worldviews and the paradigms and the belief systems, the laws of the universe, the way you see the universe and your role in it, what you believe is possible, the trances and conditioning of fear and scarcity and unworthiness. If you get, there is usually some central core trance or paradigm or belief, including identity, that if you address that, heal that, befriend that, transform that, everything else changes with so much more ease. And identity is one of the deepest, most core, most central, most affected by all those trances, levers that you can pull. And I like to think of this as like identity shifts, including it, which can be facilitated by or integrated by or, related to changing your actual legal name. Change your legal name, change your spiritual name, change your identity, and everything else shifts. And you get to be the boss of that. What this is rebranding yourself to yourself. Rebrand, it's a rebrand of yourself to yourself. And just like a rebrand in business, there's all this like other messaging and positioning. There's a reason businesses rebrand and spend all this money and take all this risk. It's because they're trying to expand or become something different. They want a different position in the minds of the market, right? So rebrand yourself to yourself. And years ago, and my students know this story, years ago, like I'm going to say 30 years ago, I lost like 60 pounds. And at the time, I remember very clearly one of the big levers, and I remember people being like, how did you do it? And what did you do? The one pivotal thing, and yeah, I made all the changes because I dramatically changed the way that I ate and how I moved my body and who I hung around with and the stories I told. But I recall one of the big levers that changed everything for me and made all of those other changes very much less effortful. I remember listening to this Tony Robbins CD, and I want to say it was called The Power of Your Identity or The Power of Identity or something like that. And I remember listening to this thing, and I remember listening to it being like, I choose now sovereignty over my identity. I decide now. And I mean, I'm telling you, I was 16. I think I was like, let's say it was 27 years ago. So maybe I was like 18 or 19 years old. Maybe I was 20. I remember saying today at 209 pounds, right? Today, I'm a fit person, period. So from today, I do what fit people do. And as I went about my day, I tuned in this hyper present way to everything, the automatic choices I was making and the intentional and habitual choices, all the choices I was making as I moved through the day. I remember thinking like, A fit person wouldn't read that. What magazine would a fit person buy? Right? What would I'm in the grocery store? Okay, I'm going to let my inner fit person, right? Kind of like my wise inner being my big self. I'm just going to let my inner fit person do my grocery shopping. I'm going to let my inner fit person choose who I spend my time with. I'm like that. And it changed everything. And it was much, much, much less effortful than trying to, weigh food and track this and that. It was just like a big, big shift at an identity level. And I continue when there are things that I desire to be different in my world, elevations that I desire to have in my world, I try to start them at identity level. Some years ago, I decided that I wanted to be the mother of a thriving family of singing, dancing children. All right. And that changed the kinds of content I consume, the time I spend with my children, how I be with my children, who they get to be, who else I allow in our lives. Right? When I started to study the sacred money archetypes, I like leaned into, I am ruler. Ruler is my number one archetype. Well, a ruler builds a transformational empire for the benefit of all without swinging the hammer, right? Same with learning my human design. I'm a projector. I am an orchestrator. I am a guide. I'm not supposed to be doing all the work. And in fact, my work is actually in understanding my zone of genius, attracting in all the people I need around me and their zones of genius, and getting really skillful and intentional about how I delegate, how I guide really more their work, because it's not hierarchical like that. Like I came to understand as at an identity level who I be as a person that is a puzzle piece that fits with generators and mangens, right? Like I need them, they need me. So we dance together. So learning how to orchestrate and lead that dance became a place that I started to spend a lot of my time, right? My identity shift, surrendering to my projector, my ruler, my mother of a thriving family of singing, dancing children. It is a very powerful trigger of alignment in all of the other ways. And if you set it right, if you choose the identity that you choose to live into right, then you choose an identity that you're in love with, that is aligned with who your wise inner being, big self actually be, the glory you came here to be. You fall in love with that identity. You drop in and download in and fill in a very colorful, very nuanced, very vivid vision for the life that aligns to and supports and is supported by that identity. And the feeling of the pressure, the need to pull all those fucking levers to change yourself or change your life goes away. Right? So only after I actually changed my name and was teaching, I teach in Simon Sinek's school. You may know him from a TED Talk he gave some years ago. That's very iconic, called Start with Why. So only after I changed my name and I was teaching my session in Simon's school did I realize, wait a second. So my most popular, I've written like 600 or something writing prompts over the last few years, and my most popular prompt, the prompt that organizations hire me to come deliver in person to their conferences and rooms, their employees, is all about name. It's all about identity, right? And it's called What's Your Game Name Now? Some of you will know it, but it's basically a prompt that was inspired by the way that they introduced Daenerys Targaryen in Game of Thrones, with all of her descriptors and how her name changes as she moves through the world and has different experiences, right? And so the prompt is really about, it challenges people to create their own Game of Thrones name, including the descriptors that would capture the essential qualities of the person that they're in the process of becoming versus the person they've been in the past, or the person that their family says they are, or whatever. So like, if you could sum up who you are becoming without referencing your old limitations, your old traumas, or even your current circumstances, just who you are becoming, right? That's the game name prompt. And at the time when I wrote the prompt, my original game name was this. I would say, I'm Tara-Nicholle Nelson, the inner critic coach, spiritual strategist to smart, successful people, practicer of Buddhist detachment, lover of God and people and champagne, daughter and granddaughter, and mother and grandmother, founder of Soul Tour, creator and teacher of spiritual strategy, which we now call self-mastery method, delighter in all things cashmere, ambitious uplifter, amateur athlete, amateur doctor, spiritual contrarian, mother of pugs, first of her name. Okay, so that was my original game name, and I would ask people to give their original game names. But as I was teaching in the Cynic school, I had done this diagram where I'd broken apart my now name, Tara-Nicholle Kirk. And I had broken it into, I had realized that I actually, my three names are all, I have sacred namesakes for each of those names, right? My name Tara, or Tara, others would say, I pronounce it Tara, means star or tower, or in Gaelic means star or light of the soul in Sanskrit, right? And my sacred namesake is the Hindu goddess Tara, the mother of liberation. Under Nicole, I always thought of like having a name saint, having my name saint be Saint Nicholas, but actually Nicholas was named after the Greek goddess Nike, the deity of speed and strength, and the messenger of victory to the people, y'all. All right. And then Kirk. And as I've said before, my sacred namesake of my last name is the Greek deity Kirky, aka Circe, the goddess of transformation, the formerly dreaded goddess of transformation. All right. So liberation, my name is liberation, victory to the people, transformation. That's my game name now. That's the identity I now live into. That's my upgrade name. All right. So I'm telling you my self-mastery stories in part as a very long-winded, luxurious, lavish for me way of inviting you to this incredible event in real life, in the flesh, in the room, that I am running October 21st through 23rd in Berkeley, California, right here at the Claremont Club and Spa. It's called Upgrade Your Money and Your Life. It's a sacred space in which you can begin to live that unlived, like formerly felt a little unreachable life that you were born to live. And I want you to know now that that life, the life you will leave the room living on day 3 of Upgrade, is a life that is bigger and more delicious than your current identity can even contain, than your current imagination can even contain. So stay tuned. There's going to be a whole lot more about Upgrade coming your way. I will drop the link to the early bird registration into the comments here somewhere. One person who does an early bird registration will get a human design reading with me, which is a very rare thing. You can't actually get, you can't buy it. I only do human design readings with my existing coaching clients or my existing Empires of the Soul clients, and those investments start at $25,000. So I hope to see you in October. I love you. And just think about what's your game name? What's the upgrade identity you're ready to start living into? I'll see you in October.